Welcome back. In this video, we'll be covering Learning Objectives 6.2, where we'll be looking at ways in which dissonance theory has moved forward, looking at advances, extensions of the theory in more recent times. One theory that has emerged as an extension of dissonance theory is something called self-affirmation theory. And according to this theory, one of the ways that you can reduce dissonance, let's say you perform poorly on a task and it feels bad. In other words, it arouses dissonance. One way you can offset that dissonance is by focusing on some other aspect of who you are and affirming it. So let's say, and this was a common experience for me in high school, you did really bad on an algebra test. Don't even talk to me about trigonometry. That was the point in time when I decided math was evil. So I do really sucky on an algebra test, and all my friends did really well. It's making me feel bad. That's the dissonance part, because I want to see myself as smart and capable and competent and all of those things. So how do I reduce the dissonance? I go back and say, well, I'm really, really, really great in my English classes. I'm really great in my history classes. I'm even excellent in science. It's just math. So I can restore my sense of myself as smart and competent and capable. So the dissonance is aroused by the threat to self-esteem. If we can't reduce the threat directly, like I wasn't going to suddenly be capable of doing math in algebra class. I just couldn't do it. Since I can't do it directly, I need to do it indirectly. So I'm going to focus on other areas of my life where I am competent. Affirmations have been tested in the lab. So when we expose someone to a manipulation where they do poorly, then we have people engage in values affirmation writing. It encourages these more positive thoughts, and it can offset those dissonant thoughts about our abilities. These exercises have been shown to have good effects because they allow people to basically inoculate themselves from the impacts of failures in one domain by focusing their attention on their successes in other domains of their lives. Another theory that is an extension of dissonance theory is self-evaluation maintenance theory. Psychologists were really good at coming up with fancy names for theories. The theory is related to interpersonal relationships, and when we compare ourselves to others around us in terms of accomplishments. So when I was in college, my good friend John, who's also a psychologist, he's way more of a rock star than I am, certainly. He was like my standard because he's mutant smart, really good at a lot of things that I was terrible at, like doing hand calculations in statistics class. So in these interpersonal relationships, we often compare our accomplishments with others. So with John, my comparisons were always, he's way smarter than me. With my other friend, Diane, we were much more on par with each other. Our abilities were roughly equivalent. So those are the kinds of comparisons that I'm talking about here. Now our goal is to maintain a positive self-evaluation. Tesser, in research in the 80s, proposed this self-evaluation maintenance theory and argued that people are going to experience dissonance in their relationships when certain conditions are met. So if you feel really close to the person, they're outperforming you in a particular area, and that area is central to self-esteem. So when I was comparing myself to my friend John, and I was feeling, particularly vulnerable at the moment, we had a close friendship. We knew each other super well, and we enjoyed doing things together. So it was an important relationship. But every time he would outperform me in stats class, it was like a dagger. That's the dissonance, the little dagger feeling. How do I reduce that kind of dissonance? Now, you have choices to make. you could change any of the components. If the task isn't self-relevant, they should want their friends to do super well. So I could reframe it and say, I adore John. Kudos to his success. He's going to do amazing things. And he did. If the task is high in self-relevance, however, that puts you in more of a pickle, where you have to reduce dissonance in another way. So, my success as a student was super important to me. And here I was super struggling in this one domain. So what I did to reduce the dissonance is saying, I am just as smart as my friend John. In fact, we were co-valedictorians of our college class. He just took a lot harder classes than I did. I can reduce the dissonance by saying, I'm very smart. The stats thing is not that important to me. So I could do that. If, however, I chose a less friendship-oriented route, I could start saying mean things about my friend. Like, I could point out, yeah, he's good in statistics, but man, is he bad at this, X, Y, or Z. So you could do that. Generally speaking, if a task is high in self-relevance, people can go hard and mean against their friends in order to reduce dissonance about themselves. You can avoid this if you can reframe the task that you've been struggling on, and reframe in some ways the importance of the relationship with the person. So in later studies, you can restore kind of their perception of their friend by having them reevaluate the self-relevance of the performance standard that they have failed to achieve. So that concludes Learning Objective 6.2. We'll continue in the final video to cover Learning Objective 6.3.